Welcome back to another episode of Packing Up and Piecing Out, the podcast where two American girls spill the tea on what it really takes to move abroad. I'm Lily, an American in London, and this is
Taylor, an American in Prague, and we have a very exciting guest on for today's episode. We connected because we both, all three of us, host podcasts about life abroad. So please say hello to Laura Peruchi. She is the host of Transplants Podcast, a podcast featuring conversations with women who move abroad. Laura is a journalist and a content creator originally from Brazil who has been living in New York City since 2014 with her Brazilian husband. And in 2020, she received a green card, which allows foreigners in the U.S. to live and work there permanently. And she is our first guest who moved to the U.S. So I'm really excited for this conversation because we do have listeners from all over the world and some listeners who also moved to the U.S. So I think that this will offer a really great perspective. So welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very excited to be here. I'm feeling like those L'Oreal advertisers because my fan is on and like you're worth it because you're worth it, you know.
I love
my
that.
hair.
Love that. Yeah, this is so good to have a new perspective because all of our guests so far have been people that have moved away either from the U.S. or from different countries, no one that's moved to the U.S. And we talk a lot about the American immigrant experience, but neither me nor Taylor actually knows it personally. We've just seen it from the outside. So I'm excited to hear from you what it's been like to move to the U.S. because obviously your perspective is going to be completely different than ours. Maybe there are things that you love that we hate, that we love that you hate. But yeah, I would love to just hear your backstory a little bit, share with the listeners where you grew up and how you ended up moving to the U.S. because I think it's, somewhat unusual to move to the U.S. from Brazil, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe correct me.
No, it's actually very common. I would say that, you said that is unusual, right? Or
maybe, but that's because I'm from Oregon, and I don't think many Brazilians make it to Oregon. It's more they go to maybe Miami or New York, or, the East Coast.
New Jersey is definitely, I think, like a lot more diverse when it comes to immigrants. But at the same time, I grew up with a few friends who had immigrant parents, but I would say most people and my age in my school were mostly born in the U.S. So I feel like maybe that's just rural versus city. So yeah, I'm excited to hear about what your childhood was like growing up in Brazil.
Yeah. So I'm from a very, very small town, like 7,000 people in the south, from the south of Brazil. And I lived there until I was 18. And then I moved to another town with like 100,000 people to go to college, which is not like a common pattern for Brazilians. Usually, like if you can, you stay like at your parents if you can go to college. And like there are a lot of people in my hometown that would just go to college in a nearby town by public transportation every night and maybe work during the day. But I wanted to study journalism, and the only option for me was going to this other town. And yeah, that was basically my life. I grew up in this scenario of like kind of like countryside as well. My grandma has, until this day, she has like a little farm. I was just like playing outside, and but I also like loved American culture, I would say, because like my idols were Hanson, Spice Girls, Bon Jovi. I remember when I was a teenager, Backstreet Boys were just like, taking place. I'm a millennial, and I would learn about everything through magazines because internet didn't come into my life only after I went to college. And I knew nearly on that I wanted to be a journalist. If you ask me why, I don't know why. Maybe it's because I've always loved to communicate. And my mom, she wanted to be a journalist, but she ended up just having kids, and she went to college. Yeah, after my brother was born. I've always loved writing, and I've always loved English. and I was just obsessed in learning like what are the songs were saying, like from Hanson and Spice Girls. I would translate literally word by word, which is like probably not the best strategy because I would get a lot of things out of context, but
Yeah.
it made sense for me. And then after college, that's when I decided, okay, I need to really study English because I know I'm going to have more opportunities if I speak English. But I didn't have any plans to like move abroad. I would like hear the stories of people going abroad to study for a while, and of course I wanted to do that to like improve the language, but it was not for me. Like it was very, very expensive. And then I started to work in this other town where I graduated, got a great job and some clients, like PR clients. And I also met my husband the last year of college. And we took our first international trip together to Buenos Aires in Argentina. It's probably like a lot of Brazilians do that because it's so close. And we met a nomadic couple there that he would follow them on social media, and he just decided to write them, and they met us, and I just got obsessed with their lifestyle. Not in the way that I want to be a nomadic. No, but I was like, I want to have this experience abroad. I want to live abroad, maybe for a while, just to see what is out there. And then my husband is in IT, and he got a job in 2013 in another town, like a capital city in Brazil. It was an international company, and he had a lot of clients, and he had an opportunity to come to New York for a project. And he was like, you can come because they're going to pay for everything. The only thing that you have to pay is the flight ticket. And I was like, yeah, sure. Then I had to get my tourist visa. But I've never been obsessed with the United States, although I had this contact with the culture. We would watch like all the American movies every afternoon. If you turn on the TV, I don't know if this till to this day, but if you turn the TV, there is an American movie like Home Alone and all those movies, and also like the TV series. I was obsessed with Dawson's Creek, but I never had the dream of visiting the United States or Disneyland, which a lot of Brazilians would do that, and even New York City because of the series. But I was like, okay, this is like a free trip. So let's do it. So I got my visa, and when I got here, I kid you not, it was love at first sight when I got to New York. And at the same time, my husband and we were thinking about the possibility of, okay, how can we live abroad at least for a while? And we've always thought about Europe. And then when I got here, I was like, you know what? You should consider maybe finding a job here. And I say him finding a job because he's in IT. It would be easier for him. And then he was like, yeah, but like visas are complicated. It's like, yeah, just try. And at the same time, I'm sorry if I'm getting like, it's a lot of details, but I'm getting to the point. His colleagues told him while he was here that he should change his LinkedIn location to New York City just to maybe see what happens. And then what happened was that he got a lot of contacts from recruiters. And long story short, from one of these recruiters, he ended up getting a job. So this was like August when we were here. And then he got back to Brazil and started to interview. And he came here again for like a round trip, 2 or 3 days to negotiate the terms in October. And in January 2014, we moved to New York. So it was very like, it was so quick because I was like, I left Brazil for a trip to New York just for fun. And I got here and I was like, oh my God, I want to live here. And then 3 months later, that was like, okay, we are moving to New York.
That is crazy. And I feel like we hear a lot from people that will move abroad because they're, I mean, kind of like with you, Taylor, because you're like reuniting with a foreign partner. But I haven't met a ton of people that moved because their spouse got a job, even though that's super common. So I'm curious, like you moved to New York because your husband got a job. What was it like for you when you first got there? Obviously, your husband has this job, but what was your plan when you arrived? Obviously, it was kind of like a new dream that came true very quickly. It must have been a lot going on. But yeah, what happened when you got to New York?
So we got married because we're not married at that time. So we got
Okay.
married for like the visa thing. So I could come here like as a spouse and not as on a tourist visa because you have like a limit to stay here. I was working for myself at that time. I had my clients, social media clients, PR clients, and I just told my clients, hey, I'm moving to New York. I wanna to continue to work with you if you are okay, and I'm gonna be in New York. And these were like fashion brands, so I kind of sold that to them, like, hey, I'm gonna be in New York, this is gonna be interesting for you guys. I can like maybe like see the trends and everything, and I could keep my clients for a while. And I also had a lot of ideas. The moment that I knew that I was moving to New York, I already had a blog about beauty and fashion, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to start to create content about New York City on YouTube. And I thought that I would be the first person that ever thought about that. I was so wrong. And also I thought about some other ideas like this. I knew that a lot of my clients, they would travel to New York or in other cities to research for fashion trends. And I was, okay, I can offer that because I'm here. And I did that for a while. So I guess I was very creative and like trying to do things. I immediately enrolled in ESL classes because although I spoke English, once you get to the place, it's not the same thing. And for a while, I was doing that, working with my clients and working with content creation. But at some point, I was earning in a Brazilian currency, and like the difference was like, this is not worth anymore. So I decided to just, I like to say, I fired my clients. And then I was here on one kind of visa. Our visa was for a year and a half. And then, I was able to work if I wanted to work, but I was so busy with my stuff. And then we changed our visa to another kind of visa. And under that visa, I could not work, like formally work anymore. I've never worked before in the United States at that point. I was like working for myself, but like if I decided, okay, now I wanted to find a job in corporate, I could not do that because they don't allow the spouses of this specific visa to formally work, which sucks.
Yeah, I think that's so difficult, and I don't know if other countries do this as well. I'm sure there are certain restrictions, but it's like if you're coming there as a spouse and you can't like get a job and like get involved in some meaningful employment, and like not everyone like of course has the opportunity to like have their own business, or yeah, like it's so limiting. It's like, how is that person going to start like building a life if they don't even have the option to get a job and like contribute to the society that they're now a part of? Like, I just don't understand that restriction at all. Like, I would think it would just be a good thing, you know, to help them, you know, integrate and to meet community and also obviously pay taxes. Like, they're missing out on that. So it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It's very frustrating, and especially because like most of the time this visa is issued for men, so the other part is most of the time a woman. And yeah, and you have like this gap and you cannot do anything about it. You can study, of course, and my husband was always being supportive, but I don't know, maybe there's another family out there where their situation, financially speaking, the salary is not that good, or maybe they have kids, you know, like we don't have kids and we didn't want to have kids at that point. So yeah, it was very, very frustrating because you're basically like wasting time. Of course, I was creating content, I was keeping myself busy, but it was not like I could earn money and maybe get a brand deal or something like that. No, I could not do anything. So I just, sometimes when I look back, I think it was kind of like a blessing for me because I was doing like New York City content, and that gave me the opportunity to explore the city, and I kept myself busy because I don't know like how other people cope with that, because it's so frustrating.
Yeah, because like when I think about that, you know, because I feel like I complain a lot, like, oh, I don't feel like working, this and that, but then I also think like if I didn't have a job, yes, I have so many hobbies and passions, but I do think that there's something about being able to make money off of things you care about. Like it's different. It gives you a different like sense of purpose that if you were doing volunteer work or doing hobbies, like it doesn't feel that the same. And yes, it sounds like yours was more short term, but I feel like if you're there for a really long period of time and can't get employment, like it is really unfair. And that's such a good point, that like it disproportionately affects women that are there as spouses. Like I could see like they're needing a lot of like support there for people in that situation, especially if, you know, they don't speak the language, and then they're like, how are you going to make friends and community, and your husband is working, and I feel like that would get really lonely. But I know that you eventually got a green card, and I'm really curious to hear about what that process was like. Like you said you switched from one visa to another, so could you kind of talk us through the process of like what was the whole visa process for you and your husband, and where are you at now?
Okay, so when we got here in 2014, we came here under a J visa, which is they call like the trainee visa. That was good for a year and a half, because when the company decided to hire him, that was the only possibility. Because the work visa, which is the H-1B, maybe you heard something about this because Trump decided to change those rules recently, which is like so absurd. So the H-1B visa, it's crazy because they only issue a certain amount of visas every year, and that only happens, I guess, is in April. But usually you have more people applying for that, so you don't even know if you're gonna get in. So when the company, when the visa was expiring, like before like the 18 months, they started this process for the H-1B, and I was already anxious because what if you don't? Because there's a lottery. That's literally a lottery, because there are more applications than visas. And I was like, okay, what's going to happen if they don't select our case? But we got in, luckily. We had to leave the country, actually, because our visa expired in June 2015. And when you have the H-1B visa, you can only get into the country in October because it's the fiscal year. So we have that gap. So if you think about it, like, I love when people say that we are stealing, like immigrants are stealing Americans' jobs. Like, a company has to literally wait for you from January when they start the process until October. Maybe I'm saying something wrong. I don't know if anything has changed, but that was our case at that time. And it's very expensive too. So we went to Brazil for a short period of time. And then we got back in October 2015 with this H-1B visa, and I was under the H-4 visa. And then under that visa, you can apply for a green card. Your employee can apply for a green card. But my husband didn't want to ask for a green card from his employer because, like, they already pay for the H-1B. I cannot just like, okay, now pay me. You can pay for a green card. And he was like, I'm not going to do that. And 1 year later, he decided he wanted to switch jobs. So that's another delay. So he went to work for another company. And the policy at this company was we only apply for green cards after a year that you're working here. So how many years we have that? 4 or 5? And I was like, I could not work. So long story short, we moved here in 2014. we got the green card only in 2020, and like I guess they started the process in 2017, so it's more than 3 years, and it's not a transparent process at all. You never know, like, oh, this can take 2 weeks or maybe 907 months. You never know. Like, yeah, it's this crazy timeline. And I remember when it was February 2020, we got the letter to take the health exams. You have to take. That's another thing that I don't understand. Like, I'm living here for over 6 years, and now you want to check my vaccines.
It seems like a scam.
Yeah,
so I'm sure it costs money.
Yeah. A health exam?
Yeah, you have to go to a doctor. I remember we stayed there for the entire afternoon, and they check your vaccine records, and you have to make sure that you have all the vaccines that are required, but only when you decide to apply for the green card.
Yeah, like you could be there, for like a decade, like on a different visa, and like they...
Exactly.
That's really weird.
Yeah, and then it was right before the pandemic, so I was like, okay, there's no way this green card is gonna be issued this year. But luckily, it was. It was in September that year we got our green cards, and before you get the green card, you get work authorization. Like in May, I got the work authorization, but yeah, it's very frustrating. Like if you get married to an American citizen, you don't need to wait that much. I guess you can apply right away, but also like it's gonna take a while. I've been to an event with immigrant women recently, and there are a lot of women married to American citizens, and they wait like a lot for the green card. And yeah, that just puts you in a vulnerable position, because we know that a lot of guys, they're not so cool out there, and sometimes you just stay in a relationship because you have to stay in that relationship. So it's not a gender issue, but at the end of the day, it is a gender issue because most of these people are women.
I've so never thought about it that way, but that's such a good point that it really does impact women more. And since you got the green card and you've been able to work since 2020, you said, how has it been going back to work? Was it a struggle because you'd been away from it for a while because of this visa situation? I'm wondering for other women or people that have been through this, like what did you learn from being forced to take a break from work and then going back to it, and how has your career been in those years? So
I guess like for a lot of us, maybe for all of us, that 2020 was like not a good year, and it made me question a lot of things in my life. And it was kind of like sad because at the same time that I got the green card, I was not happy anymore with all the work that I was doing. So I had to pivot, and I've been doing a lot of different things. I did some freelance. I applied for some positions too, but at that time I was not ready to go to corporate because I've been working for myself for like a long time. But it gave me like peace of mind. Like now I can do whatever I want. And that includes like brand partnerships and not being like afraid of receiving money, and I was able to work with New York City tourism, and that was like a great big opportunity. And I've been just like trying to find my path, honestly, since 2020, because I think I carry that identity of being the New York City expert for Brazilians for a while. And once I removed that, I felt lost. Maybe it's a midlife crisis as well. But 2 years ago, I basically continued to do the things that I was doing, but I also like decided to explore more opportunities in English because that's another thing. I started to connect with other creators and seeing all the opportunities that are available here if your audience is here, because that's another layer. Every time that I would talk to a brand, and they ask for my demographics, and they say, oh, but your audience is in Brazil. It was so frustrating because like, yeah. But yeah, I've been pivoted, and at some point I just started to question a lot of things after working with social media for a long time. And it has to align with your values as well, I guess, because you are doing that. You are the brand, you are the person. And it was almost 2 years ago that I decided that I wanted to create a podcast, actually, and like find my. I don't know if you guys know this term, ikigai. That is like things that you love, things that you are good at, things that people say you're good at, things that can bring you money. And then in the middle of all that, you have your ikigai. And that's when I decided to create a podcast. And just like I'm always thinking about the next step, honestly.
I've definitely heard that term. Like I've seen like that sort of graphic before of what you're referencing for sure. So one question I do have, now you're obviously very settled in your life in the US. Do you plan on ever applying for citizenship?
I actually am a citizen.
Oh, you are a citizen.
Oh.
Yes, I applied last year.
Oh my gosh, can you talk
Yeah.
about that? Because I've heard like everything I've seen on the internet, you know, it seems like it's difficult. It's a long process. Can you tell us what that's about? Because I eventually in like 4 years will apply to be a Czech citizen. So I'm like interested to hear what the process is like in different countries.
Okay, so you can apply for a citizenship under when you have a green card after 5 years in our case, because it was a green card through employment. If you marry an American citizen, you can apply for the citizenship 3 years after you get married. So it's a faster path. Honestly, compared to everything that we went through with all the visas and the green card, it was a piece of cake. Because you have to fill up a form, of course, and that's the most boring part, because it takes a long time, because it's a lot of questions. You have to fill like all your trips from the past 5 years to prove that you were living here. And we applied in October, and you pay, I guess, $700. And my husband and I, we apply. You don't apply as a family. You apply separately. But we apply like the button. We really like hit submit at the same time. But he's still waiting. And it kind of like a joke, because like, okay,
oh my gosh,
now I have an advantage. But and then you don't hear anything about it until February. I got a letter. Yeah, that's another interesting thing about the system. It's like you have a system, but like you can check everything, but they send you letters.
That's the same in the Czech Republic. Yeah, like we have an online system, but for certain things they'll only send you letters. But I've like had issues with getting mail at my address. Like my boyfriend has no issue getting mail, but I have issue getting mail here for some reason. And so I'm like, great. I don't even like, but they won't do it any other way. They'll only send a physical letter if I need more documents to submit. So I don't even know what to do. So yeah, I relate to that.
Yeah, and I guess like I've never heard someone saying like, oh, the immigration here is great, you know? No, there's always some bureaucracy and paperwork and everything. So back in February, I got a letter saying that my test was scheduled. So you have to take a test. So the reason why you decided to apply was because Trump again decided to change the test, and he said it's going to be more difficult. So okay, let's apply before it changes. So before, you have to study for 100 questions, and then they can ask you up to 10, and you have to get 6 right. Now I guess it's 120, and you have to get 12 right. I basically spent 3 weeks using apps to study the questions. Honestly, it was, and all my friends were like, it's easy, don't worry. But I was freaking out. But basically, you just like start to, it's like you're playing flashcards. And there are questions that are super easy, like what is the capital of the United States? And there are others that are not that obvious, like what is the representative senator of your state? So you have to memorize the names.
Literally, most Americans don't know that. I know that for a fact, that most Americans have no idea who their senators are, like, genuinely. And I get that there's these tests, but it's like, I feel like it should be in line maybe with what like the average American knows, because I don't know, like that's not hard like you said, but it's like most people don't even know that, which is like bad, but
that's what I heard. And then I went there and they ask you the questions, and then they also ask you to write something. It's so simple, honestly. It was really simple. And then they're like, okay, congratulations, you passed the test. And then you have to wait until they schedule your oath ceremony, which for me was like next day. I got a notification that it was scheduled for 1 month and 40 days after, which was in June. Yeah. So I went to the court, and you just basically wait, and you cannot have your phone or anything. So I brought a book. My husband went with me. The saddest part for me was that they take your green card. And I was like, no, can you just maybe damage and I can keep this as a souvenir, because it was so hard to get this. But anyway, you have to give that, and you have to check if your name is spelled right. And then a judge came, and it was very emotional because he was a son of immigrants, and he just like spoke beautiful words about living in the United States and being an immigrant. I cried a lot because you just think about your journey. And then, and then you're a citizen. You can apply for a passport. And that's it. I got my passport maybe 3 weeks ago, I guess. And it feels good. But I had another experience with citizenship, because I also applied for the Italian citizenship, and it was so different.
Really?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lots of Brazilians get Italian citizenship. I've heard this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I've heard lately they're making it much more difficult.
They did.
So many people have
but
done,
I guess they
it.
got back. Yeah. They tried to change, but they unchanged. I don't know. But I'm glad I got mine.
Yeah.
Oh, so you have amazing. U.S., Brazilian, and Italian?
Yeah.
That's a flex. Don't talk to me and Taylor about that.
That is so
with
amazing.
Our one passport.
Wow. Having also EU on top of like American citizenship, like that's amazing. Like, I'm so jealous.
I know. I understand. It's like I always think as a plan B, and honestly, like the citizenship, the American citizenship, of course, I love the fact that now I can vote, and I voted last month too. It was very cool as well, because when I said I'm a first voter, I don't know what to do, and they're like, first time voter, and they all clapped, and I was like, that feels so good. But one thing that we took into consideration when we decided to apply for the citizenship was because we considered to spend some time out of the country. And unfortunately, when you are a permanent resident, although the name says permanent, if you stay out of the United States for more than a year, I guess, you are risking to lose that. So, what if you go there and we want to come back? I don't know. I just like to have my options.
It's good to have options. But in terms of like moving to America, what has been some of the things that have been most surprising to you? Because I imagine at first, especially New York City, because New York City, I would actually say, what has been your experience moving to New York City? Because I think New York City versus the U.S. is so different. How has it been? Like, what has surprised you most about living in New York City? What do you love about it? Maybe start with that.
I guess what I love about New York City is the convenience and the amount of things to do. Because anything that you can think about, I want to study, I don't know. Anything you want to study that you want to try, you're going to find a place here. And another thing that I learned how to, I just forgot the verb right now, appreciate, is diversity. Because the small town where I grew up, it was like all white people around me. And then here, I just love to see so many different people, so many different races. And like my friends today, I have a lot of Brazilian friends, but I also have Indian friends, and I have Latino friends and American friends. So I really, really appreciate that. But that's something that it took me like years and years to like learn. I've grown a lot by living here. And what has been surprising to me, I guess, like the contrast between New York City and the rest of the country, because when I go to the suburbs, I go to upstate New York or Long Island, it's so different. It makes me sad. Like the health care system still makes me so sad, because it's such a rich country, and there are a lot of things that I try to understand, and I can't understand it. I guess is my pet peeve today is the healthcare system, because you got the bills, and I literally I did an ultrasound another day, and they sent me 2 different bills with different prices for the procedure, and I was like, how is that even possible? And that was the second time that I did that, the same exactly ultrasound. And for the first time, it was one price. For the second time, it was another price. It doesn't sound right. And especially because, not going to say that things in Brazil are perfect, but that's something that I appreciate, is that you have an option, you know? And even if you go like paying out of pocket, you have like a private health insurance. We don't even use that word there. We use like a health plan. You know, like beforehand how much you're going to pay. And here is a surprise, and I just don't understand. That's something that it's hard for me to understand.
It's definitely hard for us to understand too. Like, especially because like it differs state to state. There's so many different types of plans you can be on, and like, yeah, it's like everything is just a surprise. And I think what we always say is like the healthcare in the U.S. can be very phenomenal, like incredible, if you have the money to pay for it, which obviously most people don't have, because like a lot of people in the US, whether they're immigrants or Americans, are, you know, even struggling to pay rent. So paying like these high co-pays for really good, like, you know, medical care, like that's not on most people's ability to pay. And yes, you can try to fight insurance companies for years, but that's also like a time barrier that a lot of people don't have. Like my mom was able to get, I went to the emergency room when I was in university, and they charged us $36,000 for a CAT scan, because $36 for a CAT scan and an ultrasound, and they covered everything except they said the CAT scan was medically unnecessary, so they didn't cover it, and it was $9,000. Which I didn't ask for it. That's what they chose to do, right? And my mom was able to get that lowered a lot by fighting with the insurance company for years, which took her a lot of time, a lot of research, trying to like, you know, use certain litigation. She's also a lawyer, so like that helps. But most people don't have that. And so like most people would just have to go into, you know, debt or a payment plan and just pay it back. Which is just crazy. But I think that goes to show that there's always going to be things in the country you move to that you don't love, and a lot of things you do love. And it's like, I think that that's totally natural. And I think we should be able to talk about that, because it really annoys me when you are an immigrant and you say something, you know, negative about the place you're living, which in your case, you're a citizen, like you're an American citizen, like you have the same right as everybody else to criticize the country you live in, even if you weren't a citizen, if you're a taxpayer, if you're on a visa, if you're living there, like you have a right to those things. And when you're not a citizen, you can't even vote. So the policies affect you, but you don't even have a say. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes when I have ever posted anything slightly negative about living in Prague, which I rarely ever do, but because I get so much hate on it, because then there's this say, go home, we don't want you here anyway, go back to America where you have that. And it's like, I pay taxes here the same as you. I live here, yeah, maybe not as long as you, but I feel like we should still have a right to say those things because we live in these countries and these things affect us.
Yeah, I agree. I would always hear those kind of comments when I complain. I did, like, when I had my YouTube channel about New York City. I remember during the pandemic, I did like maybe it was a long video over 25 minutes just explaining the healthcare system. And I did some research because I wanted to understand, and people were asking me like, what is happening with people because of COVID? And I was like, you know what? I want to understand this. Let me just go deep. And then I did this video, which I'm very proud of. But at some point, I turned off the comments because I was like, I cannot deal with this anymore. If you guys don't know like the difference, and I just can't, because they immediately think, in my case, I have to deal with Brazilians. They immediately think that, oh, but like the system in Brazil is not perfect. I didn't say that, but you have an option. I don't have an option here. It's, but I got to a point of, I'm not going to get into an argument. The video is here. If you want to learn, go for it. And if not, I'm not going to waste my time. But I can see people are just like, how can you like complain about it while we are here in this shitty country, and all I wanted to do was being there? Because also that is the image that is sold to Latin America about living in the United States, is that everything is perfect. And I don't want to sound like persona non grata. Like, I really love to live here, especially the sense of safety, I would say. And maybe if you ask another American, because I know there are a lot of things that are saying about New York City, like it's not safe because the mayor is a socialist or anything like that. And like, girl, I come from Brazil. I can, depending on the city, I cannot take my phone out because someone is gonna grab my phone. So like for me, it's perfect. I feel safe. I can take the subway. I can go back late at night. I can go to the park and run early in the morning. Of course, I'm a woman. I have to take my, but it's all about perspective, because an American's going to have a different perspective about life in the United States, and a Brazilian is going to bring their upbringing, and compared to Brazil, a lot of things are going to be way better, especially in a country like ours that, like, the discrepancy, it's so like... So a lot of people have a lot of money, and a lot of people are so poor. So that's I guess that's what I love about these conversations about living abroad, because we have our experiences, and that's what we take into the conversation to decide if this is something good or bad for me. Because it's all about your background and where you're coming from and what you had or you didn't have.
Yeah. And I think I never thought about that angle of like getting hate comments from, say, people from your home country, because it's not like Americans being like, you're ungrateful. It's people from Brazil, right, who are saying, you're so lucky, like you shouldn't complain about America. Like, I wish I could live there. I never really thought about that, because I guess as an American abroad, most Americans in my comments are like, I'm so jealous. They're jealous, but like at the same, like it's never that. It's usually like, always check people.
I get some like that. I'll get the Americans, but they tend to be Trump supporters that will be like, yeah, you go stay in America where they don't have guns, but maybe different perspective, but similar.
Yeah, but it's like people are always gonna take out, that's just what being on the internet, which all three of us know, that people are always just gonna put their own narrative and their own feelings and portray it on you. And I think it also does have a connection to the conversation of privilege. Like, it seems like we all know that we have a certain level of privilege being able to move abroad, and that, yes, we are immigrants and our stories are all different, but there are so many immigrants in America who have so many more problems that we don't have to face because of our privileges. So I think that that's always so important, because we need to like keep that perspective, and I think that that's why conversations like this are really, really important. But also I think it's important that we also, share our perspectives on social media, because we're not trying to say that our struggles are equal to the struggles of other people, but everyone has a right to share their experiences and to talk about what it's like being in their shoes, whatever they may be, if that makes sense.
Especially because I guess life abroad is very romanticized. I guess like I see like a lot of Americans want to live in Europe, and a lot of Brazilians want to live in Europe or in the United States or even Canada. And you like the grass is always greener, right? But it's important that people talk about like the struggles. Yes, there are a lot of great things, but you also have to deal with this, and this, and I think it's very important, because otherwise people go like blind and they don't know what to expect, and the frustration is gonna get like bigger and bigger, and sometimes you're like suffering alone because you think you're the only one going through that, and then you discover that no, there are like hundreds of thousands of people going through the same.
That's so true. And I think a lot of people, I'm sure Brazilians that are jealous of you, or the Americans that are like jealous of me and Taylor, they think that we have it so easy living abroad because we move to countries that maybe are, have better healthcare or are richer or have all these things that they would like to have in their country, whatever it is. But honestly, on a day-to-day basis, I think we have a more difficult life. Like, we have all these decisions we have to make all the time, all this bureaucracy we have to go through. Like, yeah, maybe, me and Taylor moving to Europe, now we have a better healthcare system, but we have to learn how it works. We have to get new doctors. We have to do all these things. Like, our lives on a day-to-day basis, I think, are a bit more difficult. And it's okay that we talk about that, because I think when I first moved abroad, I romanticized it as well. I thought it was going to be just vacation and easy and everything would just work out. And it has, but only because I've done work every single day to figure out life abroad. And yeah, it's important that people talk about the issues with your country, but also with what it means to move abroad for you, like emotionally and financially, and all the different reasons.
Like, we chose this, but we've put ourselves into like a permanent like outsider category, because even I know that one day when I hopefully eventually can speak Czech well and eventually become a citizen, like, people will always know instantly that I'm not Czech. So I'm never going to be able to fit in, because I'll always have an accent when speaking Czech. And it's like, I know that's what I chose. I chose to be a permanent outsider, but it's like that does weigh on you sometimes, because it's
yes,
like
I was never gonna say
fully
that.
Fit in.
I guess Lily, maybe, I don't know. I would be really curious, and we have to have you on my podcast to talk about your experience. But that's something that I always think about when you move to a country, like you are living in London, like you speak the same language, but at the same time, it is the same language. You know what I mean? So I'll be very curious to hear your perspective. But adding to what Taylor said, yes, it's when you speak a second or a third language, you're always learning something new, which is exciting. But sometimes it's just, I just wanted to speak Portuguese. I just wanted to be able to explain this in my own words and make sense, because yeah, it's a mental load when you live abroad. And there are seasons that things are good, and there are other seasons that things are not good. Now I have to go to a physical therapist, and I'm already like struggling, think like, how am I going to explain what I'm feeling? Because I know how to say this in Portuguese. If I just say in this way, I know that the person would get me. But if I say this in English. Is this gonna make sense? You know? So it's every season is a new adventure, a new challenge. Sometimes like it's a small challenge, sometimes it's like a bigger challenge.
Definitely.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I was just
we
going to
should-
say, speaking about your podcast and going on it, Taylor's going to be on it. I'm going to be on it. But it's called Transplants. I'm wondering, well, 2 questions. Why did you choose Transplants? And what's like one episode you think everyone should listen to if they're going to come listen to your podcast? Like, what's your recommendation for which one they should listen to?
Okay, so Transplants, to be really honest, I kind of regret that name sometimes because it's like the medical term, it's so close to it, and I wonder if that helps me or
like
not.
for SEO purposes?
Yes, because people would
Okay.
look for like, anyway, but
Yeah.
I love the meaning of the word, and I know that here in the United States, some Americans use that word with like with a negative connotation. Like I see a lot of people in New York just relating to other Americans. That's so funny to me because immigrants are immigrants, but then they see other Americans as transplants and they don't like that. They're very protective. And I was like, I
Yeah.
thought this was about diversity, but I can see how that would happen in Brazil as well. We're kind of like competing against each other anyway. But I love the meaning of literally like a transplant because you're always carrying some part of you to this other place. Like I'm here now, but I have so many things from Brazil and this is always gonna be with me. So when you have like a transplant surgery, like, and let's say that someone got a heart from another person, it's like part of that person. That's the meaning that I went with, and I really love that. Because like sometimes people get into like a lot of arguments between immigrant, expat, and I'm all about immigrant, but I was like transplant is like the romantic term in my opinion. And the episode, I'm just gonna be very spontaneous right now. The one that comes to my mind is actually like the first one, which was with an American living in Mexico City. Okay. And I just love her story because she's a black woman. She's a former public school teacher, and she just, in her own words, she blew out her life after her 40s. She got divorced and she always wanted to live abroad, and she did it. And she also retired, like financially speaking. And she's living her life, traveling, and she said so many inspiring things. And I love that episode. I really love. So maybe you can start from that one. Her name is Adelia, by the way.
And I also really love how your podcast focuses on the stories of women because, of course, you know, there are things that we have to consider that men moving abroad might not really ever think about. Safety being a big one, you know, in terms of being a woman in a certain place. So why did you want to focus Transplants on the stories of women in particular?
I think because it connects to my story, to like creating content and having contact with the audience. Most of the people are women. Also related to my story as an immigrant. And I just think men have enough spotlight already. They don't need that. But it's like you said, I guess a lot of things that we consider in life in general never cross their minds. And I think women should be celebrated. And I really believe that we can get inspiration from other people, and I guess we will feel more inspired to do things by seeing other women doing. Because if it's a man, I will be like, yeah, but he's a man. But he's not a woman. And I believe it's about like life in general is about taking bold steps, and I really wish that people that can listen to the episodes, even if they're not planning to move abroad, if they're planning to change careers or traveling, even like doing things by themselves, they could feel more inspired and to do that, you know, by, okay, if she can do it, I can do it.
That's great. The best advice I ever received was never take advice from a man. So that's my, like, especially career advice, but honestly life advice, because it just generally, it really doesn't apply to you because their experience is so different. But
I stand by that. I pretty much only consume like media that is by a woman, or like I don't know. I just relate to it a lot more. And we've had a few incredible men on this podcast, don't get me wrong, but I do feel like, that it just, I feel more connected just listening to stories of women, because I feel like we have this inherent understanding of each other. Like, oh, they get it. They know what it's like. So I really, really love that.
Yeah, I agree.
And what's something you wish you knew when you moved abroad? Like, if you could go back to 2013, right before you moved to New York, what would you tell yourself, knowing what you know now in 2026?
Wow. Yeah. I guess I would say, like, girl, do your research regarding immigration, or maybe not, because you're gonna get discouraged anyway, because I didn't know anything that I was like about to go through. So when I told my husband you should get a job here, he told me, yeah, but visas are complicated. I was like, yeah, but no worries, let's try. I also, maybe I would invest in like shaping and getting better in English and writing, like all my skills in English earlier in those days, you know? I think those are like the two things that could really, really help me, like strategically and mentally speaking, because like immigration is not for the weak. It doesn't matter where you live, and I guess you girls know that.
Yeah,
definitely we do. Okay, and for our final question, we ask every single one of our guests as part of our segment called Missing on the Menu. Maybe, I'm sure you can get good Brazilian food in New York because they have the best culinary scene like in the world, probably, in terms of diversity. But we ask all of our guests what's one food they miss from their home country that they wish that they could have right now, a food or a drink.
Okay, I'm gonna be modern. Sure. There is like this new brand of chocolate in Brazil that I really, really love. It's called Dengo. And Dengo in Portuguese means, like petting, like, it's like, I don't know how to translate, but it's a very Brazilian word. And the chocolate's so good. It's so good. And they use like a lot of Brazilian ingredients from the Amazon forest. And I really love their products. And unfortunately, they don't have stores here yet, because I guess they have potential. But maybe that's one thing that I would love to have it here, is their chocolate, because it's really, really good.
That's good, because also America in general isn't really known for having great chocolate. So I can understand why you miss chocolate from Brazil. But yeah, honestly, well, at least British people will make fun of American chocolate. British people think American chocolate is terrible.
Honestly, Brazilian chocolate in general is not good, but there are some new brands right now that, like this one, that are really good. But I can find some great chocolate here, but of course in Europe it's easier and cheaper.
Yeah, fair. Taylor, what's your missing on the menu?
The other day I was craving something so much, but I can't think about it now. I feel like I need to start writing it down. But something that comes to mind tonight is just like my local Chinese food restaurant, because Chinese food in Prague, I mean, it's good, but it's not like American Chinese food is so like particular, I feel like, and I haven't had anything like equivalent. I haven't been to China, but I've also heard that it's very different, of course, in China versus America. But yeah, I feel like the Chinese food in Prague, it's not my favorite cuisine, so I feel like American Chinese food from my local place, I would demolish that right now.
That's true. I've heard that every country has its own version of Chinese food. Like, it's completely different everywhere. I mean, China, obviously, but like American Chinese food, Spanish Chinese food, Czech Chinese food, like it's different everywhere. When I lived in Spain, I lived in Chinatown, and the Chinese food there just did not do it for me, because it wasn't super flavorful or spicy because Spanish people aren't accustomed to it. So they base it on the local, like if it's a country that has a lot of spice in their food, then they make it spicier. But if they have less, then they make it less.
Yeah, that makes sense though.
Yeah, that makes
that's
sense.
something
to the palate.
that's something that I learned how to appreciate living here, like the spicy food. I was so weak before I moved to the United States. Now I love spicy food. And Brazilians that travel here, they usually complain about, oh my God, the food is so spicy. I was like, no, it's not.
That's funny. I think Americans would probably think that Brazilians eat spicy food because we like to generalize all of Latin America. But good to know. You guys can't handle your spice. I love spicy food, but that's because I guess I grew up in America.
I can't handle it. So
my missing on the menu is good movie theater popcorn. The movie theater popcorn in the UK is terrible, and I don't like it. So
in Prague, in Czech Republic, they have ham and cheese flavored popcorn. How strange is that? It's actually really good, but eating a whole bag of it, like you get really tired of the flavor because it's very strong. But yeah, they either offer salt or ham and cheese, and I feel like in England they offer like sweet popcorn at the movie theaters.
Yeah, they do. I don't like it.
I don't like that. I want
butter. I want butter and salt. And
I think they also have sweet here in the United States. No,
at the movie.
Am I wrong? At the movie theater?
I
don't go a lot.
I don't think at the movie theater. Definitely definitely in grocery stores, so you could sneak some in. But I feel like the movie theater just has salty
butter.
Popcorn. Yeah,
butter,
buttery, salty.
Okay.
See, you learn something new on every episode of Packing Up and Piecing Out, people. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening, and Laura for joining us today. Can you let our listeners know where they can find you and Transplants?
Yeah, Transplants is available in all the podcast platforms, also on YouTube. I'm also on Instagram. It's Laura_Peruchi, and you have all my links there, so you can check that out.
I'll put them in the show notes. All right.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Yeah,
thanks,
you, Laura.
girls.
We'll see
that was
you guys
a pleasure.
next week.
That's all for this episode of Packing Up and Piecing Out.
If you liked it, hit subscribe, follow us at Pack Up, Peace Out, and leave us a review. It helps more Packers Up and Piecers Out find us.
And for more of our unfiltered takes on life abroad, follow me at Taylor Takes Prague.
And me at A Rich Woman's World. We'll see you at the airport.